welcome to the audience and to my guest Uday. Hi Uday, how have you been?
Yeah, good. How are you been, Bunty?
Good, good. It is nice to connect to you and seeing your background. I remember the time I spent in Mysore uh, at the center. Uh, Lovely background, and I don't get too many of my guests having a background like that. Even to see, forget participating in a podcast from there. So good to have
Okay.
you and a good reminder as well. Uh, this is a very unique subject that I have thought of, which I don't have too much idea uh, how to pursue it. So I was just doing a bit of question answer with Chat GPT on it. So how do people perceive this subject? The subject I have in mind is refuge, or in Hindi, I remember the term when
Hmm.
I used to be listening to a lot of bhajans in an earlier kind of life. The word was Sharnagati, and I used to love the word a lot. And just prior to setting up the technicality of the podcast, I was thinking what it meant to me. There was a lot of solace. There was a lot of calmness in that word that I found during those days. A lot of emotional peace, if I were to call it that. Uh, Now I have no such emotional connect with the word per se, just uh, actually no relation because I have not been thinking too much on the refuge part of it as much. So, how do you see refuge? Um if you want, I can tell you a bit about what ChatGPT said. It said refuge is people who are exiled go and find asylum in other places, and that was the political version of it. And the spiritual or the religious version, I asked, so what about refuge in religion? So it said that different religions have different ways to look at it. One of the interesting parts there was that Muslims see refuge from evil in Allah, and other people have other versions of it. Uh, that's where my thought about where does refuge stand for me. As of right now, it stands nowhere in the except the fact that whenever I go for a meditation retreat and the first few minutes are spoken about our refuge in the Buddha and the Dhamma and the Sangha, I feel a very strong affinity with it for that while, and then I get to work and do whatever I have kind of planned for myself. How do you see refuge in human terms and your own personal viewpoint of it?
I think refuge. I looked up the Hindi translation. तो जो श्रोताएं हिंदी में सुन रहे हैं वो शरण है या आश्रय है.
जी.
And I think we do have refuge as a mental concept right from our childhood. We don't use that word very explicitly, but we always would go back to our dada dadis, nana nanis, our parents. That is where we would feel secure, where we would feel unconditionally loved, uh, something that was truthful. Uh, and I think, and through our journey in life, I think we want and we do find some support or some place where we can go back to and feel safe, secured, loved, nurtured. And I think that's what refuge means for most people. And when we take even any religion, eventually why people fall back on it uh, is during the tough times they feel there is something that is larger and something that helps them understand the difficulties of life and how to handle it. And others have gone through the same. And there is there is this unifying force or power. We call it God or Allah or nirvana, where you find there is peace and there is no suffering. So, and in a daily life, I think people find that refuge in arts, the music or painting or poetry. Uh, and some people find it in social work, serving others. That is where they find a sense of higher calling, a peace that they could think beyond and above themselves and do something for people. So all of that is our refuge actually. And when you don't have a proper refuge, or our refuge isn't as pure or as solid, then I think we do feel disoriented, and we feel as though we are a ship, in the sea without any direction and rudder. So that's where we have refuge.
It's a very beautiful answer because you kind of humanize the whole concept of why we need a refuge or what we see in a refuge. Uh, it set me thinking, what is the quality of a refugee in that sense? So if I go to someone or something for a refuge, what are things that need to be within me? Because is it mere solace from whatever troubles I'm facing at that point of time, or is there more to it? And obviously, if there is a power or if there is a refuge that is giving me the sanctuary, the feeling of being sorted in that moment, what are qualities that are expected of me before I go and ask for refuge, or before I take refuge, or while I take refuge? Are there things like that that need to be addressed according to you?
Not really. I think if you look at when people typically take refuge, let us say it's in a religious context.
Okay.
Typically, it is when you are going through a difficult time, right? You're having a lot of troubles in your life, and you want to find some answers and peace, and you go there. So, so the first criteria could be that I am at least accepting that I will go there,
Okay.
right? So in that movie of Amitabh, where he finally goes to the temple
Ah,
and confronts God, right? So आखिरकार आना ही पड़ा, right? So that अंदर से जाने का वो अगर प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, we are willing to submit ourselves to the process of reducing our ego to that much, that let me go, let me seek. I think that's the first step. I think that has to be there. Without that, it would be difficult.
okay.
And secondly, once when you do go and take refuge in whatever activity or religion or meditation that gives you peace, then you will slowly discover there is more to it than just my troubles or solving whatever problem I have. And when you do get a perspective of thinking beyond yourself, and that you are part of a larger uh, humanity, and then you know how you can be happy with or without getting what you want, and seeing others going through their own lives, it opens up another dimension in your life, which I think that helps an individual as well. But if you find that that is of no use, then I think you will keep on going back to that refuge, trying to find answers, and the answer would always be around you, but you would be too occupied with yourself to see it. Uh, so I think yes, I think those two qualities would be there.
Wonderful.
You need to be open to seeking and going, and then you need to be available.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you use the term uh, larger humanity, uh, thank you for using it because it reminded me of a question that had propped up. Is it necessary to be part of a group uh, to experience this, to be able uh, to understand the depth required of, I'm using a term since I'm not getting the word, egolessness, uh, or can it be individual? How do you see it, and do you have any experience regarding the same?
I think the group that we are part of, the family, or the friends we have, are our own small world. And when we venture out into society or into another form of uh, practice, whether it is social work or religion or meditation, we find there is another world out there which is also a part of us. We choose not to see it or engage with it for different reasons. And when we start engaging with that, we realize that we are all part of, each other, even though we may not acknowledge Jesus' presence or see uh, the suffering in their lives, the happiness in their lives, what issues bother them. We are still connected, and I think that is something that I think each one goes through that realization as they age, as they see circumstances, events which bring people together, uh, and you realize we are all part of one. The divisions that we have created are artificial for whatever reasons, whether it is class, creed, religion, status, education. Um, but all of them dissolve at a moment when you have to actually be there for each other. And I think you see it in any riot, any accident, any calamity, how people come together, leaving all the differences. Uh, so, yeah, I think you don't have to be part of a group. You actually join the group that was already there, the society and the world. You just kept yourself away and wanted to be in that gated community, feeling exclusive. But there is nothing exclusive. We're all inclusive. So,
A very beautiful answer. That's a very beautiful answer. Um, so does it then mean that the universality of the human experience uh, takes over us once we allow ourselves to start the process of demystifying this uh, quote unquote aloneness that we start the problem with? So, for example, if I have a particular problem and I think I have to deal with it and I have to resolve it in some manner, and I use all the forces available to me, whether it is power, money, uh, brains, connections, whatever I can use to resolve it, and I continue to try, and somehow the solution seems to evade me uh, for a reasonable period of time. And I come to a point where I realize, okay, it doesn't seem to work, and I will have to go and bow down to some kind of higher authority, higher power, or quote unquote greater wisdom if one is not a believer of a power per se. And once I go there, I find there are others who, like me, have joined at various points of time and have their own individual journeys where they've come and merged with the great whole. But I really like this perspective. And would you be able to throw some light on this? That I kept thinking, I keep thinking till now that each one comes with their own individual problems and is not satisfied till they get a reasonably good answer for themselves, or at least something that they are convinced with. But here you have turned it on its head and you're saying that actually it is you who are getting dissolved and joining the whole great mass of humanity in seeking answers. Your question may have been initially different. So, are there any common questions or grounds through which we approach uh, this subject of refuge, according to you?
yes, like you said, I'm trying all these different methods to resolve this particular issue, right? And when you reach a place where you find those methods or those efforts aren't yielding any result, then then the next thing that occurs is I need to take refuge in something to find an answer to this question or this issue. And it is in this quest that people have turned to spirituality and meditation and found their answers. Uh, and hopefully, you won't be doing this uh, quest every time. So if it's like one of those recurring nightmares that you resolve it a little bit, and you go back and keep doing the same mistake, again you'll have to come back through that refuge. So eventually, after you're doing twice, thrice, 4 times, 10 times, you realize, okay, so these are the principles that we operate by in nature. And once you imbibe those principles, then you won't have to fight this fight every time. But I want to resolve all these problems, or I can resolve all these problems, that they're always in my control to do something about. You do whatever you can with on the basis of morality, and then you leave the rest to nature. Let it take care and resolve it. And so eventually you do reach that place, but that journey is an individual journey. So yes.
Uh, I will ask the next question in Hindi because you actually preempted the question by adding the last bit of the answer there. But there is a point to that. तो कई लोग जो डिवोशन के रास्ते चलते हैं to reach this place of refuge, or where they feel some entity or some element of God or some goddess or some saintly figure or some spiritual authority is resolving their issues. फिर वो बार बार आते हैं, कोई नया प्रॉब्लम लेके आते हैं, फिर वहीं रुकते हैं, फिर so how many times does one have to come up with a new problem thinking, okay, this has been resolved, now let me check this kind of problem, or how do I get out of this issue that I have now? So my monetary problem is solved, let me check whether this God, this entity resolves my family problem also. And the problem, at least I find, yeah, मुझे जो मिला है is that I look for miraculous interventions. I used to, perhaps, or I've seen people around me look for it. Okay, ye hua, oh, so this is right for me. I was waiting for a bus and it was midnight and I did not have anything, and a car came and stopped, and that guy said, can you tell me the road to this place? And it turned out to be my residence. And I said, can you give me a lift? And yeah, very miraculously, I went and reached my place in 20 minutes instead of the 3 hours it was going to take. Those kind of things. Uh, so those kind of things reaffirm my faith. Okay, this entity is looking after my interests. But again, somewhere, like when I used to follow these things, I remember sometimes the answer is no. And I used to like it because there was a sense of humor to it. It's like you think, okay, I am going to do this ritual and I am going to whatever, not fast for 20 days or do this or do that, and I am going to be a supplicant to this greater authority, and they will think, or the higher authority will be pulled into thinking that I am worthy of this and give me this in spite of me knowing the issues at hand. So if I'll just give you an example. So if I'm in a partnership with you regarding some business and I know that I've been wronging you, but I need the money more than you, and I've justified it in my head, and I'm doing this. And I keep going to this authority and saying, okay, do this for me, do this for me. I refuse to change what is the basic problem, which is I should be fair with you. I keep on justifying this, and meanwhile, I do rituals and other things that I think make me a good person. Uh, what do you have to say about that? Because I have found that happening very often, and it is difficult. It is very difficult to make somebody understand. Look, you got to change. The basic premise remains purity, perhaps. Do you agree? One, and second, how does this get resolved according to you? Like, what is the point when a person can trip and get into the rightness of things, if that is an answer of sorts?
So whatever we take a refuge in, um, eventually one realizes that we are drawn towards it because there is certain purity in it, and the purity comes from the basis of morals and ethics. So if we are
not being moral, and we are trying to justify something and thinking that if we take refuge in a particular guru or a god or a meditation technique, somehow it's going to make things okay, even though we broke some rules. Uh, I think eventually we realize it doesn't work that. So, yeah, whatever you do, good or bad, it eventually come back to you. Uh, if anything, taking refuge helps us realize that we've done something that was not good, and eventually it just destroys a peace of mind. So we might as well follow whatever uh, rules or guidelines that have been laid out uh, in what we're taking refuge for and follow them. I think either you do that or you go into that alternative stream of asking and hoping it is given to you, and again go back and do something else, uh, a ritual or a fast or a donation, and hope that it'll help you get something else. So there's always this wanting, getting, and whenever you don't get, you feel you weren't given your due. So you've not actually taken refuge in anything. You're just following your desires, and you want all of them fulfilled. So I think it all comes crashing when some desire cannot be fulfilled because something has been taken away from you, whether it was a business or whether it's a loved one or whether it is your health, and it's not going to come back again, right? Then the need for a refuge is very mm, strong and is felt because you realize there's no way of uh, talking around this or managing around this loss. So you really feel that hole in yourself and you want it filled. Uh, and then whatever you take refuge in is also cannot fill that hole. It can give you another way to look at it and to maybe realize that as a whole is something that you've created for yourself. Yeah.
Um, the question that is running in my head is uh, some of us, or quite a few of us, may think that we took refuge uh, and gave authority uh, to somebody outside of ourselves. That itself is surrender enough. So now the deity or the
Mhm.
force
Yes.
cannot hold me accountable for what I am doing. That is a problem I was facing, and I did not want to answer that in a morally correct way, perhaps, or because of the. And I'm not doubting their intent. I mean that our story is so strong in our heads, where I allow my fear and doubt to color the story completely and completely believe in it. So at that point of time, one of the one of the lovely things that I've seen is some people still change. They may go down the wrong track for a while, and something happens, and they are willing to take responsibility for it. Uh, is there a method to the madness somewhere? What is it if it is there? Like, what is the point where a person will really change, according to you?
I think personally, when what you're doing or is not aligning with your inner self or inner values or peace, uh, you want to get out of it. And it doesn't have to be something very dramatic,
Okay.
right? So you're living a certain kind of life, you're working in a certain organization, you're in a certain relationship, and something after a while just doesn't feel right anymore. You're trying to be something you're not, you're trying to be something for somebody else, you're trying to accomplish something that you really don't value. Right? They don't align anymore with who you are or what you. and then you decide you need a break. And that break could be of different sorts. You could go on a vacation and take refuge in nature, or you could go on a spiritual journey. You can do one of many other things. But so that is the point where I feel people really change. And even to arrive at that place, one has to be introspective enough, silent enough to get the messages that nature is sending you, that your own heart or mind is sending you, saying, and this thing is not something that is suiting you anymore. But people typically drown that out with, you know, outside attractions or validations, or, you know, pleasures through alcohol or drugs or awards or branded clothes or whatever, something that keeps you always engaged with something outside, but never actually wanting to listen to your heart, what it is telling you from within. But when you start listening, I think the answers are very clear where you should be and where you shouldn't be. So,
Um, last two questions in a way. Those are running in my head. One um, is there a danger in uh,
mhm.
in allowing the entity to take over completely? I mean, in a way where you become a little fatalistic. Where does personal responsibility start and end, and where does the surrender happen?
I think personal responsibility starts when you decide you want to pursue something. That is your choice. You wanted to be a CA, you wanted to write the IAS, or you wanted to start a business, or you wanted to um, join some fancy law firm. That is your choice. From that begins a series of steps, and each one of those steps has a positive and a negative to it, has the right way and the wrong way of doing it. Those again are your choices. And the initial goal you set out, with whatever wisdom or ignorance you had, you chose it. It has its consequences. Then, to accomplish that goal, you took some measures. Each one of those measures, right or wrong, it has its own consequences. The end result is a sum total of all of those actions and decisions, and what is happening around you, societally or organizationally. All of them combined, you get a result. And where the surrender happens is you accept whatever result is given for whatever effort you put in. So that's what the surrender would be. If you're going to say, I surrender by not making any decision about my life, something will come up and I will pursue that. That is fatalist. Or I make a decision, I want to achieve this in life, and then I don't put any effort towards it or do it half-heartedly, and then blame fate. That's fatalist. If we at least accept that what we have got is some result of some action of the past or the present, I think there you've surrendered yourself to nature.
Okay. Uh, one of the questions that I was thinking of was uh, it is kind of connected to the answer you gave now. Uh, how does one come about to so let me give a context to this. So from our childhood we are told to take refuge in, like you said, in our grandparents, sometimes parents or other loved ones or other things that give us um, some kind of happiness, initially some kind of purity of happiness, and then sometimes it changes. uh, Later we find a religion or God or nature or whatever we decide that we are going to take refuge in. So at that point of time, when does uh, when does one take the jump to personal responsibility? You said we start it the moment we have put down a desire, this is what I want to achieve, or this is where I want to go. But a lot of us may not be clear about those things. Things happen to us, and we are thrust into things in family businesses and relationships that we may not agree with. So many things in life are out of our control. So, in that sense, how does one deal with this? Hmm.
So we typically take refuge when we are in a difficulty, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that's where we started our conversation. So at that point in time, you're already emotionally struggling. You're in a situation which isn't going well for you, and you don't seem to find any way out of it or any easy, actionable solution to it. So you are willing to, believe in something else or follow something else that will give you some relief, peace of mind. In that process, you'll realize that certain things were in my hands. I did it. Maybe I didn't do it to the best of my ability, but so many other things weren't in my hand. And sum total of all of that is what I find myself in today. And even that realization is good enough because it takes away the lot of the guilt and the self blame that each individual puts them in themselves in when they face a difficult situation. The second part is what you're asking: where does my personal responsibility begin? I think if any individual is even a little aware of this blind faith in anything, like in parents or grandparents or even God. Even as a kid, you didn't study, but then you are praying to God, and next day you realize, oh, I'm not going to pass this exam because I didn't study. Right? It's very obvious. There's no question there that you didn't put effort, but you believed in God and you went to the temple or the Gurdwara, and suddenly you're hoping to get through. It doesn't happen. No, if a person is so deluded that he or she keeps on doing the same thing year after year, thinking, okay, I have faith in this person, I've done my religious rituals, and they'll somehow bail me out, something good will happen. Very soon you realize it doesn't happen. I think that's one thing. The second thing is when things are going well for you, which is a big danger. And things are going well for you, when whatever you touch turns to gold, right? Then when a huge crisis hits you, and typically it hits you in your personal life, like some relationship is going bad or something is happening, then it puts everything in stark contrast to what you were pursuing, what you achieved, and today what you're losing.
Yeah.
You realize, was it worth it, or was it even worth pursuing? There it makes you pause. And if you pause, then it's a good time to change the direction of your life, where you're living, where you're thinking. Uh, yeah. So and that's also a good place to find your refuge. Where is it that you think will actually give me true inner growth? Because even seeking refuge in the wrong sort of philosophy or ideology could cause you, you know, greater harm than what you were already in to begin with. So yes, it's a process of self-discovery, but if you're open to what you're truly feeling, I think you will discover it someday.
Wonderful. Oh, that is a lovely end to the discussion as well, as far as I'm concerned tonight. Uh, what comes to me from this answer that you gave is that when we come to a state of mind and body where we are learning to accept things uh, the way they are, and surrendering while still doing what is required to be done at all stages, because at every point the mind is going to calculate whether we did put in the right kind of effort or not. And that would be a good place to take the refuge as well as responsibility along with that refuge, I guess. Thank you so
Yes.
much for your time today. I shall see you
Thank
soon.
you. It was nice talking. Yes, thank you. It was nice talking to you. Have a nice day. Good
Thank you.
night.